Who are the top 100 NBA players right now? With Shai's MVP year, Giannis and Jokic's continued greatness, and Wemby and Cade's big leaps, and the fall-off of former stars like PG, this list looks a lot different from last year. Let's not waste any time. All 100 guys are split up into tiers where they're nearly interchangeable within the tiers, and it's a mix of their recent performance and just how good the players are. Availability does matter, but often injured players are still on the list, and remember, it's just a ranking, it's all subjective, and we all have our own opinions, and any previous rankings I mentioned are from my top 100 rankings last year. Now some honorable mentions are Malik Monk, Isaiah Stewart, Nick Claxton, DeJounte Murray, Jeremy Sohan, Scoot Henderson, Derek Lively, John Collins, and Naz Reid. Number 100 is Tari Eason, who was unranked last year. Eason is a defensive force. He will stand ball handlers up everywhere, just taking the ball from them, and is an amazing defensive playmaker that will force turnovers and get out in transition offensively. Though he isn't that healthy and has plenty of offensive limitations, his shooting is respectable, and he's a very good offensive rebounder, fitting right into the current Rockets mold. Number 99 is Jared McCain, coming off a rookie year where he only played 23 games, but it was an ultra impressive stretch and showed that he is a winning player. McCain never stopped running, always looking to position himself better, and when he did get the ball, he was great at scoring efficiently for a rookie. McCain is a smarter young player and can read the floor and make the smart play a majority of the time, and he'll have an amazing impact on a hopefully competitive Sixers team next season. 98 is Pistons' Ausar Thompson. Ausar is already one of the best defenders in the league after just a season and a half. He is everything on that side, being a complete lockdown guy that gets the highest defensive assignments, including Brunson in the playoffs, while also being strong enough to compete inside, fast enough to keep up with smaller guards, and exceptional at forcing turnovers. He's a true superhuman athlete that played amazing, though physical, when it mattered most in the playoffs. New Cavalier DeAndre Hunter is 97th after not making it last season. Hunter is a very good 3-level scorer, being his biggest strength. That combination of size and shot making in a role player is very hard to find, with this year becoming one of the best bench scorers in the game and can score on or off ball. His size is nice, but the non-scoring is why he's so low. He's not much of a playmaker as he's not the most willing passer, and defensively he has slow feet, and the size as Cavs frontcourt defensively is what really saves him. Shadon Sharpe takes the 96 spot. Shadon is an electric scorer. He's a crazy finisher that can dunk over anybody and uses his strength to get to the rim, but also has the creativity there to make him one of the league's best finishers. He's also pretty scalable and can score much more if needed, which shows his star potential, as he's barely even 22 years old. While he isn't a star defensively and does have some consistency concerns, he isn't terrible on that end, but is still a raw player with many more steps to take. Colin Sexton ranks 95th, despite being 89th last year, but to no fault of his own. Due to horrible career circumstances throughout his 7-year career, he still hasn't even been close to making the playoffs, but we can dream about him in a playoff scenario. Sexton is an absolute dog, an extremely gritty defender who makes the most he can with his size, but is also an underrated and growing playmaker, though nothing special, and becoming more of an all-around scorer with very good efficiency despite being on the Jazz. Though his PRA numbers are likely inflated a bit, he'll be very impactful and a fan favorite if moved to a contending team. Jaden Ivey slots in at 94th, and next season should be exciting. Ivey only played 30 games this year because of a broken leg, but will return to a solid Pistons team that will likely be in the playoffs and trying to take another step next season, which he will be really useful for. In his shortened year, he had by far the best 3-point shooting of his career, and he's overall a solid secondary creator behind Cade, though I would like at some point for Ivey to be moved to a tertiary role with a better secondary creator, but don't rule out a big Ivey jump and for him to continue what was the best year of his career before the injury. Drew Holiday drops to 93rd after being ranked 59th from last year's Celtics championship, as Father Time is starting to get Drew. He still has elite defense, being a strong POA defender that can guard bigger players because of his strength, and the Celtics' defensive depth gives him versatility with his matchups. He still has some offense, but just isn't the same on that side of the ball. He doesn't shoot or even get the ball much anymore, which likely can be partly attributed to how good the Celtics are, but with trade rumors, we could have seen the last of the two-time champion in the iconic green. Kings' Keegan Murray gets up to 92nd. For a team that has just went through it over the last couple of years and now lost their star De'Aaron Fox, Keegan has been sort of a bright spot, but not in the way that many expected. Coming into the league as one of the best shooters, he has regressed to a 35.1% rate while maintaining the same volume over the last 2 seasons. But he has become a better finisher, and where he really improved is his defense. Murray is very versatile, being a good rim protector but also a bigger POA defender, and can handle harder matchups, becoming one of the more important players for Sacramento's bleak future. Lou Dort ranks at 91. Dort has been a key part of a historic OKC team, but has maintained a consistent 3-and-D role. Dort was in slight DPOY contention, and after being just 2 points away from making his first all-defensive team last year, he would easily make first team this year. He's a strong POA defender that handles bigger ball handlers like Luka extremely well because of his size and physicality, and though he may not be a top 5 or even top 10 defender in the world, he is consistently elite and the leader of a fearsome Thunder defense. Now, his green light on offense can't be ignored, and it does hurt OKC at times, but when he's hitting his shots, it feels unbeatable, and over the last 2 years, he's been a positive catch-and-shoot guy. Miles Turner takes the 90th spot after being 71st last season, and in the same tier, Turner specializes in being sort of a 3-and-D big. He shot a career-high 39.6% from 3, being one of the best big man shooters, and at that height, nobody can even contest him. Turner is also a premier shot blocker, having averaged around 2+ blocks a game since his sophomore season in 2017. Maybe the biggest part of his game developing is his availability, playing more than 70 games in 2 straight seasons for the first time in his career, but the terrible rebounding as a big will limit Turner's ceiling. Paul George gets the 89th spot after a weird first season in Philly and drops in a huge way after ranking 30th last season. This 76ers season felt like a fever dream, and PG got a lot of slander for it. He suffered a hyperextended knee in the preseason and just never got healthy, while Embiid barely played, and while he did, he was very clearly injured. A horrible start gave the Sixers no playoff hope, but even when George played, he just wasn't that good. He struggled in a bigger role and didn't have the same burst and getting to the rim, and his spots, which just led to him to not shoot, and when he did, he wouldn't even make the shots. Whether or not he can return to his former self is a big thing to look at next season, but I think he can be at least 80% of Clippers PG and a very solid player. Jabari Smith Jr. gets the 88th spot after being 99th last year. While the former Auburn Tiger didn't become the KD regen that some predicted, he has found a way to make his impact known and become a key winning player to an unexpectedly good Rocket squad. While the raw shooting numbers don't look good, being able to knock down multiple threes a game at nearly 7 foot is always useful, and he shot 45.5% from deep in the playoffs. He's just a very good off-ball scorer and solid pull-up shooter, but is a much better defender. At a mobile 6'11", he can defend the rim while keeping up with wings on the perimeter, and his fast feet are key. He's one of the best defenders on already one of the best defensive teams. PJ Washington virtually stays in the same spot as last year, going from 88th to 87th. He was a rare stabilizing force for some of the season and a very rocky Mavs year, but is one of the better players of his mold. PJ is a bigger defender that can handle fours and was an important secondary rim protector. With the absence of Derrick Jones Jr. and not on the immediate defensive reliance on Najee Marshall, they forced PJ to step up on that side. He was also an improved 3-point shooter and showed last year how he can perform in the playoffs. His skill ability is great as he can step up if needed and be a tertiary creator in a contending team. His former teammate Brandon Miller is 86th after being 69th last year. Miller didn't get a full season, playing just 27 games because of an early wrist injury, but he continued to show us what he excels at. Miller has the green light and is not afraid to use it. Though his efficiency was really rough, he's in just his second season and will improve on that, but those younger mistakes do hurt him as he also struggles with turnovers. Miller also does have the defensive tools and should progress in that area, but as of right now, he isn't great on that side of the ball. Pacers' Andrew Nembhard makes the list at 85, and though this is being recorded before the finals ends, he has had an amazing playoffs up to this point. Nemby is just an absurd defender, drawing tougher matchups like Shai in the finals and containing the other players, but also being a very good help defender and pest to limit the other team's best players. His shot creation is also just great. We have seen it over and over again that he just has a bag, and though I am lower on his scoring due to efficiency than most, he always shows up in the clutch. Now, the opposing team in the finals guard, Cason Wallace, is at 84. This is almost solely because of his defense, and though he has had a rough final so far, that doesn't mean that it hasn't been an overall good playoffs. Now offensively, he doesn't do much aside from being a catch-and-shoot three-point shooter and doesn't have much on-ball responsibility, but where his value comes in is defense. Kason is a complete disruptor on that side of the ball as he will blow plays up. He's good as a pick-and-roll defender and really just versatile on that side while creating well over 2 stocks a game for a team that loves to get out in transition. Somehow the third pacer on this list already is Aaron Nesmith at 83. With the Pacers offense built to empower everyone's ball handling and self-creation, Nesmith has turned into a really good tertiary creator and amazing shooter. He shot at a 42.3% rate from deep over the playoffs the last 2 years and has made a league-high 53 threes so far in the playoffs at 49%. Even defensively, he's very versatile. He's a good POA defender but can keep up with smaller defenders because of his quickness and bigger defenders because of his vertical speed and wingspan. Pelicans CJ McCollum rises 5 spots from last season to 82. At 33 years old, CJ is still one of the better scorers in the game, being able to score in almost any capacity. He can take a step up and be a solid on-ball creator and have outbursts, but also is a very good off-ball scorer with good off-ball shooting. McCollum isn't a terrible playmaker and had his first 50-pointer in 6 years, but didn't have a whole season as the entire Pels team got injured. The 6th man of the year, Peyton Pritchard, takes the 81st spot. With Tatum's injury, Pritchard should get more opportunity next year, and he could take a huge step to being a top 50 guy. He's an amazing scorer, being insanely efficient, while one of the best shooters in the league, with a combination of on and off ball as a great movement guy, and his shooting gravity helps open up the floor for everybody else. Even defensively, he has improved, and next year could be huge for the 27-year-old. Toumani Camara gets the 80th spot. He's truly one of the best defenders in the world, and his versatility makes him so much more valuable. At 6'8", 220 and extremely strong and lengthy, he can just body bigger players and prevent them from even getting to the rim, but also has the quickness to keep up with smaller guards, as he is truly one of the most versatile elite defenders. He does the little stuff and is elite at drawing charges, as a player that every team would dream of. Offensively, he is improving, becoming a better shooter, and someone that works well within the system, but of course his value comes mainly on defense. Cam Johnson gets the sole top 100 spot for the Brooklyn Nets. Unfortunately, he wasn't traded to the OKC Thunder, where he would have been very important on this finals run, but he's still a great asset for Brooklyn. Being this level of a 3-and-D player is just a winning archetype for competing teams and someone that teams will be vying for over the offseason. Cam's level of shot creation isn't good enough to lead a team, but is very useful in a supporting role. Mitchell Robinson is up to 78 after being ranked 95th last season. It's the same story with Robinson's strength and flaws, but when he plays, he's just so good. Robinson cannot stay healthy, with which former Knicks coach Tom Thibodeau at the helm. He just can't play the minutes or games wanted. Over the last 2 regular seasons, he's played just 48 games, but when he does play, he's been amazing. His rim protection helped the rest of the defense elevate to a different level and get better in creating transition opportunities, as he is there to swat anything that comes his way. Having a terrible defensive center in Cat hurt New York a lot, which made Robinson even more important this year, and the Knicks were an absurd 8.9 points better per 100 possessions when he's on the court compared to off in the playoffs, the second best of all Knicks rotational players. It's no secret why the Knicks got way better in the playoffs compared to the regular season when Robinson didn't play much. RJ Barrett gets a 5-spot bump to 77 from last year. Star J had his first full season with Toronto this year after being traded from the Knicks at the 2024 deadline, and it was a weird season. Statistically, he had a career year with career highs in the 3 major statistical categories, but his efficiency was down after an unsustainable Raptors start last season. With some very clear limitations in Scotty's game being confirmed this year, Barrett was forced to have the ball more than some may have expected, and he's a solid offensive creator for others, but maybe not to the extent that he was asked to do so. Josh Giddey gets the 76th spot to recover from a horrible 2024 season. The post-All-Star break Giddey stretch was absolutely amazing. Pre-All-Star break, he averaged 12, 7, and 6 on just 10.2 shots at less than 45% from the field. Post-break, 21.2 points, 10.7 rebounds, 9.3 assists, 2.2 stocks, 50% from the field, and over 45% from 3. Just the second player to ever put up those numbers over a 19-game stretch, the other of course being Jokic. But Giddey is just a great creator who did a way better job at making his baskets, which also elevated him as a playmaker. Now for that shooting to continue would be a shocker and elevate him to crazy heights if it is, but he still has a solid floor as an on-ball playmaker. Andrew Wiggins ranks 75th. Sometimes it seems like he can never get it right for a long amount of time, whether it's his fault or other circumstances, but overall he's just a good player. Wiggins is a big positive defensively this year as a wing POA defender that can just stop the ball at times and works well in isolation. Now, while he was inconsistent in Miami, he still had some good performances and clearly fit into the organization well. Into the next tier is Brandon Ingram, who fell from 36th to 74th. BI played just 18 games after an injury-riddled Pell season, but was traded to Toronto at the deadline. Now, while I don't agree with what the Raptors are building and their future, the talent is there. Ingram can just rise up and over players to shoot and is one of the smoothest buckets in the league who operates at such a consistent and efficient level year in and year out. His playmaking is slightly underrated, and he's not a complete cone on passing, so it will be interesting to see how he slots in next to Scottie and RJ next year. 73rd is Lauri Markkanen. Despite being 40th before, Lauri only played 47 games at 31 minutes a match, but that was really just because of the Jazz tanking, but some of his numbers are still inflated. The high points numbers come from the team literally just not having anybody else, and though Markkanen did experiment more with the ball this season, he still is limited to working best in an off-ball role. Now, Lauri is a good shooter that should fit very well offensively into most systems if he does end up getting traded, but the non-scoring parts of his game are worrying. DeMar DeRozan falls from 43rd to 72nd this year. DeMar is a magician in the mid-range, consistently being one of the best midi maestros of the century and keeping the shot alive. The problem isn't that great at much else anymore. His playmaking isn't bad as he can manage the pick and roll very well with his maturity of age, and he's not a horrible defender, but there aren't things that stand out, unlike his clutch ability, as he has been one of the clutchest players in the leagues over the last few seasons. Kristaps Porzingis takes the 71st spot, a dip of 21 from last year. Porzingis is still amazing when healthy, but is often injured and dealt with a couple illnesses that threw off his entire season, and was terrible in the playoffs where he just played bad when he even got on the floor. The versatility that he brings to Boston with his spacing cannot be understated. The spacing that he brought last season was a huge reason that Boston won, and he is still a great shot blocker, but the inability to stay healthy has unfortunately been the story of his whole career. At 70 is Michael Porter Jr., down from 58 previously. MPJ is the prototypical 3-and-D wing. He has virtually no playmaking, is one of the best three-point shooters in the league with a crazy green light, and with Jokic at the helm, will take a lot of attempts, and being a good and lengthy POA defender, being 6'10 and next to Jokic will elevate him compared to others in the same role, but questions about his long-term future, partially because of his lucrative contract, and with the Nuggets not having made the conference finals in the last 2 years, they could be shipping him out sooner than later. Zach LaVine gets the 69 spot, moving down 17. Despite the worst ranking, LaVine had a great comeback season after playing just 25 matches in the prior year and not having made an All-Star game in a few seasons. LaVine is an underrated playmaker, and without Fox, he would get a good amount of ball handling responsibility and played well in that role. He'd also have by far the best three-point shooting season of his career, knocking down a career-high 239 threes on a career-high 44.6% rate. Jordan Poole rises 16 spots to 68th. Poole is just an unbelievable shot creator and surprisingly had the best season of his career. Without Tyus Jones, Poole would continue his momentum from late last season and was absolutely amazing this year. While still a negative defensively, he is getting better and a good defensive playmaker. While he's an extremely underrated offensive playmaker, his handle and shiftiness can get him into the paint at will, and he's such a good finisher that it helps create for others. He's also one of the best three-point shooters and the leader for an encouraging Wizards team. Jalen Suggs gets the 67 spot on this list. While the Magic did just trade for Desmond Bane, Suggs' impact is still big enough and able to be scaled down to help the Magic in a huge way. Suggs didn't play much this season, playing just 35 games, and there is some injury concerns, and even when he played, it wasn't a different role from usual, with Paolo and Franz missing a big amount of times. Suggs is still an amazing defender, making an all-defensive team last season, and is the heart and soul of a fearsome Magic defense. Isaiah Hartenstein rises from 99 to 66 this season, and while Hartenstein was really good for the Knicks last year, he just had a career year for OKC. His defense is much improved, and his mobility is really what makes him extremely good. And next to fellow big Chet Holmgren, he can move kind of more like a traditional big. His touch is really well near the rim, and he's one of the better screen setters, fitting well next to Shai, and is amazing at just boxing out and allowing other Thunder players to grab a rebound. Maybe the most shocking ranking on my list is Domantas Sabonis at 65th, down from 37th last year, and let me explain why. While Sabonis is extremely talented, he's the most overrated player in the league. He's not anything special as a scorer, having a very limited bag and not much self-creation skills. He's one of the most overrated playmakers, being a DHO merchant, and was genuinely a horror defender, which limits the Kings defensively and relies on Keon and Keegan. Sabonis was much worse when not paired next to Fox, being thrust into a first option role, averaging just 16 points after the trade deadline and almost 3 turnovers. His rebounding numbers are gaudy, but much of it is because of the limited amount of solid rebounders on the Kings roster and the insane physicality he uses on the boards. But the archetype of player he is what makes the Kings, or any team to have him, have no hope. A high usage, no defense big has worked just once, that being Nikola Jokic, who's one of the best offensive players ever with a very good supporting cast and easier playoff path. Sabonis isn't even a tenth of Jokic. That archetype of player cannot win if you're not in the 99.9th percentile of it, and it shouldn't be surprising that whenever it matters, whether in the play-in or playoffs or even just big games, Sabonis falters time and time again. While the talent is alright, winning is what matters, and a player that can impact winning greatly in a limited role is much better to have than a player who will forever limit the team he's on because of his archetype and big game performances. Mikal Bridges falls 10 spots to 64th. Mikal had a disappointing year after the Knicks gave up one of the biggest hauls in recent memory for him, but his strengths are still there. While he isn't the defender that many thought, he's still a plus on that side, and a wing POA defender is always valuable. His shot also isn't cooked like rumors at the beginning of the year, and he's had some really encouraging performances, most notably the Christmas Day game against the Spurs, and he's a solid supporting creator, but maybe he just isn't worth all that was given up for him. Alex Caruso rises 10 spots to 63rd. Caruso is truly one of the best defensive guards we have ever seen. When we talk about defensive versatility from a guard, he should be what comes to mind. This dude can do everything, fronting Nikola Jokic in a Game 7, the biggest Thunder game at the time in nearly a decade, and holding him to just 20 points. Caruso is amazing at just blowing up actions, really good screen navigator, and great in the gaps. He will force turnovers. His POE defense is one of the best in the league, despite being a guard, and he fits seamlessly into the Thunder. Even this playoffs, he has been a really good shooter and punished defense for leaving him open. Another defensive-minded player, Dyson Daniels, ranked 62nd. Dyson was in DPOY contention as he had one of the best steal seasons in recent memory. Daniels was a complete defensive pest, but wasn't just a defensive playmaker, he still was a genuinely good defender. He can play great off-ball defense and be the lead POA defender, but is also a growing player on the other side. He's a good off-ball scorer, as an inconsistent three-point shooter and growing cutter. Trey, Dyson, and Jalen Johnson is one of the more encouraging trios for the future. Jaden McDaniels takes the 61st position after being ranked 75th last year. McDaniels' creating is what really elevated him from last season. When Randall went down with an injury, they gave McDaniels more opportunity to create for himself, and he was amazing. Even when Randall returned and got the ball more, we saw more flashes of the self-creation, and he's still been a great deep-range shooter in the playoffs, making 42% of his 131 threes in his 3 years in the playoffs. McDaniels is still just a really impactful defender, being one of the few players that can guard as many positions as he can. With a lanky 6'9" build and his physical tools, he's truly one of the best role players in the league, and it makes sense why he's nearly untouchable in trade talks. Warriors' Draymond Green rises 6 spots to number 60. Dre is still one of the best defenders in the world despite being 35 years old and was in competition for Defensive Player of the Year award. He's just an amazing defensive leader, one of the best of all time, and will automatically elevate a bad defense to at least be solid. The Warriors really don't have any great defensive personnel. Curry has regressed defensively over the last few years. They don't have a good rim protecting center anymore, and the younger guys and Buddy Hield play key minutes. Yet Golden State still has a serviceable defense. That's because of Draymond. His roaming and some rim protection offer a good amount of value and offers a great defensive floor. Yes, Cooper Flagg is already in the 59th spot. Wemby's recent selection does make Flagg seem a bit worse than he is, but Flagg is one of the best prospects we have had in years, and really the most complete American prospect since maybe even LeBron. There isn't anything Flagg isn't good at. He's an absurd passer at that size, making advanced reads and being able to pass through small gaps with insane processing from a forward prospect. He has erased his slight shooting concerns this year and was one of the best defenders in college ball. Flagg will step into a potentially playoff Mavs team as a league-ready guy and one of the best rookies in recent memory. Herb Jones jumps 9 spots to 58th, and that is more of just appreciating just how impactful Herb is. He only played 20 games this season, but it isn't like injuries are much of a concern. The entire New Orleans team was injured, and this is just the first season of his career. He didn't play at least 65 games. The lower parts of this list have been full of some of the best defenders in the league, and Herb is right there with them, and maybe even better than most of them. This dude is the full package and someone any team would love to have. He gets stuck to a player and will just not let them get away. He's insanely fast and is an off-ball defender and someone that forces turnovers and protects passing lanes. On offense, his shooting has been inconsistent, but last year he shot 41.8% from 3, and the signs of being a good shooter are clearly there. Teammate Trey Murphy gets up to 57th after a career year and jump up 40 spots from last season. Murphy was by far the brightest spot for the Pelicans this season, and that type of 3-and-D player is insanely valuable, whether it stays with New Orleans or goes to another team. With everybody out, they relied much more on Murphy's shot creation, which he showed off in a big way. The pull-up 3 was amazing and made him a much more complete shooter and offensive player, and though he likely works much better in a supporting role, it makes him more scalable. The defense is of course good too, with a 7-foot wingspan and ability to play on-ball defense. Kobe White jumps 7 spots to 56th and has taken yet another jump this season. After the deadline with more ball handling after Levine was gone, White averaged 23, 4, and 4 on very good efficiency. He's such an underrated ball handler and scorer. Kobe is one of the fastest players in the league, just being able to drive past people, especially with his great ball handling. His pull-up scoring makes it even tougher to contain him, as his speed and handle make it so tough to guard him one-on-one. Austin Reeves jumps 35 spots to 55th, and he made it clear that he isn't just a cool player that can score, but is a very great tertiary option. The numbers may not even be as good as they can be, but he's now trapped behind LeBron and Luka for touches, but even his off-ball scoring is very good, and his skill ability has turned him into one of the better scorers in the league. He's also an amazing on-ball scorer that can get to the line at will and is a great driver. His playmaking is also very underrated, already creating very good chemistry with everyone else and can make some very advanced reads. Desmond Bane drops 10 spots to 54th and is the newest Orlando Magic addition after a surprising midday trade to become a floor spacer and guard scorer for a team that desperately needs spacing. He has been one of the best shooters in the league for years, shooting 41% from 3 in his first 5 seasons in the league. He's a great tertiary scorer that can also work well as a supporting piece, as his playmaking, and isn't a terrible defender despite his weirdly small build for a shooting guard. Tyler Hero goes from 86th to 53rd over the season. After playing just 42 games last year with questions about his long-term future with the Heat, he had a huge comeback season to make his first All-Star appearance. Hero remains as one of the best shooters in the league, going over 38% from 3 in his 6-year career, and is still a great driver. He also has a lot of poise in managing the pick and roll as an improved playmaker, and while there is questions about how far he can take a Hero-led team, he should still work great as a supporting piece. 52 is Deni Avdija, jumping 39 spots from last season. Deni has become one of the best drivers in the league. The strength that he has with the footwork is absolutely amazing. Nobody can stop him, and it is easily one of the best Blazers half-court plays. Deni has also maintained the shooting jump that he took last season, and though he isn't some sharpshooter, he's still serviceable enough, shooting at a 36.5% rate from deep. Avdija is also a very good playmaker and lengthy defender. He works great as a big POA guy, especially next to a star defender Toumani Camara, and has the size to guard even bigger guys like centers at times. LaMelo Ball starts the next tier at 51, falling 4 spots from 47 last year. Though LaMelo's talent is much higher than this, it is a complete injury issue. Ball has played more than 52 games just once throughout his career, and only 105 games through the last 2 seasons, well below 50% of the available games, as he just keeps suffering leg injuries. When he does play, he's one of the most exciting players in the league. LaMelo has the complete green light and will try to make any play that can possibly be made, playing at 100 as an insanely creative shot taker and playmaker. Starting the top 50 is someone else with the same issue, Zion Williamson, who was at 22nd last year. Zion had a surprisingly healthy season last season, playing just 70 games, but this year he appeared just 30 times. He has played more than 30 games just twice in his 6-year career, but when he does play, he's also insanely good. Zion is up there with Giannis as one of the most unstoppable forces inside, as an insane driver with a really good handle and crazy power. Zion also makes some really smart reads and is truly a great playmaker, offensively and defensively with his shot blocking. Alperen Şengün falls 15 spots to 49th. Şengün had by far the best defensive season of his career, especially next to Steven Adams. The double big lineups worked very well, and next to great defenders, it made it way easier on his end to improve. And while he still isn't the best defender with physical limitations as a slow-footed, non-athletic center, he's also fine as an athletic hub. Now, there are questions about Şengün as a lead offensive player. He was still the best Rockets player in the playoffs. He has a mean post-game and touch and is one of the better operators in the pick and roll. Aaron Gordon goes from 55th to 48th after an amazing season with the Denver Nuggets. Gordon is one of the best role players in the league, which is genuinely even better than being a bad star. Gordon did miss a significant amount of time this season, but had by far the best shooting season of his career, going 43.6% in the regular season and still around 38% in the playoffs, and hit some huge clutch shots for Denver. He works best as a play finisher who's a great cutter, but can also have some level of shot creation. Gordon is also an insanely versatile defender that consistently makes highlight plays on that end and is a great helping rim protector. His teammate Jamal Murray has fallen 20 spots to 47th. Murray remains one of the more clutch players in the league who does turn it up as the season goes on. Murray does work very well in the pick and roll as a pairing with Nikola Jokic, as that remains one of the best duos we have seen in recent memory. He's still a really good secondary creator and can turn it up with high scoring outputs, and it's just an absurd pull-up threat, but there are some limitations to his game, like him consistently underperforming in the regular seasons, sometimes getting stifled by some tighter defensive coverages, and likely relying on Jokic for some of his value. Rockets' Amen Thompson is at 46 after just his second season. Amen is a complete physical freak of nature as one of the best athletes we have ever seen. He has a crazy frame at 6'7" and is one of the best defenders in the world. He's a brick wall that not many people can even get past and will just poke balls away that leads to easy transition points, which is needed for a rough half-court offense. He's still a great defensive playmaker that is one of the better shot blockers. While his self-creation isn't great, he's an amazing backdoor cutter that can throw it down on anybody and is a pretty solid playmaker and ball handler. Scottie Barnes has fell 6 places to 45th. Unfortunately for Scottie, it was more apparent this year that he's not going to be a primary offensive player in this league. He definitely cannot lead a team offensively to anything special as he has limitations in his pull-up scoring, efficiency, and playmaking, but on the bright side, he's an insane defender. He's one of the best defensive playmakers and will cause issues for any opposing ball handlers as one of the best wing defenders in the league on and off the ball. Tyrese Maxey falls 12 spots to 44th. Maxey's shot creation is just absurd. He's one of the best three-point creators in the league with a great handle and someone that can create space with the ball or off relocations and screens. His percentages this season weren't great, but he's still a really good shooter that should recover once he moves back into a secondary role next to Joel Embiid. After this year, it did dampen the chances that Maxey can ever get to a premier lead offensive role, but as a secondary scorer and playmaker, the Sixers can optimize him in a wide-open conference next year. At 29 last year but 43 this year is Karl Anthony Towns. Though Ket had a great statistical start to the season with video games numbers with his rebounding, there are some big flaws. Now, to say the good stuff first, Ket is a historic shooter for a center, and the spacing that he brought to the Knicks did help their offensive ceiling. With more options in the pick and pop with Brunson, and to be able to create as a center is really useful, but overall he brings a lot of negatives. Towns is genuinely horrible on defense. He was consistently getting cooked in actions, and even being with another great defensive big like Mitchell Robinson didn't help like last year with Gobert. Cat is also just not a great playmaker for how good of a scorer he is, and he's really held back the Knicks. Now that mentioned, Rudy Gobert ranks 42nd after being 30th last year. The biggest regression in Gobert's game has been his rebounding. Once one of the league's best rebounders has been taken out of the game on the boards at times this year, including in the playoffs, but overall he's still a top 2 defender in the sport. Despite a rough start to the year, Gobert is still an insane rim defender, just not letting people shoot at the rim, and the difference is apparent to when he steps off the court when people get to the paint at will. He's still a great shot blocker and defensive roamer, and has been way better on the perimeter and in isolation with some of the better scorers, though he will never be elite in that area, and he's still pretty much a complete zero offensively. His teammate Julius Randle falls 8 spots to 41st, but that isn't to say that he didn't have a surprisingly great season. Especially upon returning from a midseason injury, they gave Randle the ball much more, and Point Randle was a complete beast with some of the best playmaking of his career. Randle is still one of the best post scorers in the league and a good secondary creator, and most importantly, shut up the doubters in this year's playoffs. He was amazing against the Lakers and tore apart the Warriors in his first time making the conference finals. Randle did have a tough time against the elite Thunder defense, but overall, it was a stark change from his previous playoff struggles. Jarrett Allen jumps from 46th to 40th and has been amazing for the Cavs this season. If anything, I think that Allen deserves to get the ball way more than he actually does, as he's amazing with it and has proven to be much better when he gets a bigger workload. Allen has an insane touch around the rim and is one of the most efficient players as a great play finisher. He's also a great lob threat near the rim, which works great as an elite screen setter next to a great playmaker like Garland. Allen is also one of the better rim protectors in the league, and as a front court partner next to Mobley, works great in saving the rough backcourt Cavs defense. Damian Lillard falls from 26th to 39th, but that isn't because of his play, but instead his injury. After coming back in an unprecedented amount of time from blood clots, Dame would sadly go down with a ruptured Achilles, and as a soon-to-be 35-year-old, the chances that Dame ever returns to the same level is very unlikely, and he will probably miss all of next season. Now, when he did play, it was a great second season with the Bucks. He's still a great shot creator, and though he didn't get to the rim as much, he's still amazing when there. He does have a lot of defensive limitations, but his shot making should keep him as a valuable player even past the Achilles injury. Jalen Johnson is one of the biggest jumpers, going from 83rd last year to 38th. At 6'9", Johnson's lengthiness, athleticness, and versatility is heavily impactful on both sides of the ball. Johnson is great as an on-ball defender and can guard multiple positions, while also being one of the best defensive rebounders and a great shot blocker. He single-handedly carried the Hawks defense, as the team doesn't have a lot of good defensive personnel, but he's also a threat offensively. He's a great transition scorer and finisher near the rim, especially next to Trey, and he's a really good secondary creator as someone that could also pass very well. OG Anunoby also took a big jump from 53rd to 37th. OG is one of the best defenders in the world. His strong build works very well against bigger players, and he's an elite POA defender. He even does a great job as an off-ball defender and getting stocks to help the team's defense, but in the first year with the Knicks, his biggest improvement was as a creator. While he isn't some great playmaker, he works very well as a play finisher, as a consistently great three-point shooter, and with more ball handling responsibility with Brunson injured, and it worked really well. Maybe the best role player in the league, Derek White, has jumped up 15 spots to 36th. White genuinely doesn't have a single weakness. His three-point leap since coming to Boston is crazily impressive, becoming one of the best shooters in the league. He's also a very good playmaker, play finisher, and his scalability with more ball handling will get tested with Tatum out next season. White is also one of the best defenders in the league, being insanely versatile on that end and guarding almost any position. He's the definition of a winning player and is one of the best guard shot blockers ever. New Warriors forward Jimmy Butler fell 20 spots to 35th. Jimmy's scoring aggression is scary for his longer-term outlook. Butler went from some guy that went looking for his own shot and made sure he got enough attempts, especially trying to get to the line, to someone that went completely ghost sometimes in the playoffs. For someone that always goes crazy in the playoffs, Jimmy didn't play in it last year and was pretty bad this season. It's hard to give a playoff riser much respect when he hasn't rose in the playoffs for the last 2 seasons. Bam Adebayo fell from 21st to 34th, but may finally be at his natural position. After a terrible start to the season, the Heat would promote rookie Kel'el Ware to the starting lineup, which would move Adebayo to the power forward position, and he would perform much better. While his rim shooting has consistently gotten worse, Bam has started to develop a three-point shot and makes him a much better four and floor spacer. His strengths though still are defense, consistently being in the all-defense considerations as a great shot blocker, rim protector, and moves pretty well at that size. Kyrie Irving has also fell 10 spots to 33rd, which is also partially because of his injuries. In an early March game, Kyle would tear his ACL after bumping knees with a Kings defender. Kyrie will be nearly 34 years old once he returns from a serious leg injury, and as a primarily driving guard, he may not be the same when he returns. Now, when Kyrie does play, he's absolutely amazing. He was great as a secondary creator next to Luka, and an amazing playmaker. He's one of the most creative finishers and ball handlers we have ever seen, and next to AD could be a fun pairing. After not being ranked last year, Ivica Zubac gets up to 32nd. Zubac is one of the best play finishers in the league next to James Harden. It really is a perfect pairing. Zubac's touch is insane, and for a big of his size to move in the way that he does makes him really efficient and a useful offensive player. Zubac has also taken a huge jump defensively into DPOY conversations this season. He's a great shot blocker and works extremely well on bigger centers, as arguably the best Jokic defender in the world and a crazy good rebounder. Finals MVP Jaylen Brown has fell 7 spots to 31st after a more disappointing playoffs. Brown got the Finals MVP over Jason Tatum last season, but has regressed this year. He continues to be a rough three-point shooter, having terrible efficiency and not as respected as some other Boston players, and that has helped in ruining his advanced statistics. For his strengths, he still is a solid shot creator, an improved off-ball player, while being one of the best on-ball defenders with this much scoring prowess. De'Aaron Fox pretty much stays in the same spot, going from 28 to 30. While Fox hasn't got to play much with Wemby yet, this should be a really fun pairing. Despite being 27, Fox remains as one of the speediest players in the league and someone that can get past defenders in just a few dribbles. While the three-point shot hasn't developed past a few months stretch a couple years ago, Fox is still a premier scorer, consistently scoring well over 20 a game, as he's one of the better guards inside and has a mean floater while being one of the clutcher players in the league who can consistently get a bucket down the stretch. Fox is also a great playmaker, finding the right reads, and should be much better next to Wemby compared to guys like Sabonis or DeRozan. Franz Wagner has jumped nearly 20 spots from 48th to 29th. Franz is really turning into a two-way star despite the three-pointer having disappeared over the last 2 years. As a creator, he's very underrated by most fans, as he uses his body extremely well when getting inside and has a good handle and control of speed, which allows him to get by defenders. He's also a physical finisher with a solidly big frame, but likely his most underrated feature is his playmaking. While he isn't usually used as a primary playmaker, Franz is so smart with his reads, getting efficient looks constantly and finding the right man. He's also a very underrated defender that works better as a POA guy and uses his frame extremely well. His teammate Paolo Banchero remains in a similar spot, falling 3 places to 28th. Weirdly, just like Franz, he also tore his oblique and did it after a 50-point game to start his season. Now, Paolo is the lead guy for Orlando, but has more obvious flaws, most notably being his shot selection. As a freak of nature athlete settling on mid-ranges and shooting horrible at the rim, though that was also partly because of the Magic's offense around him, and the addition of Baines should help, but his multi-level scoring and the ability to playmake with his movement at that size gives him a sky-high ceiling, and just like Wagner, Paolo is also a really good defender, but with a bit more rim protection. Uno, James Harden has rose from 41st to 27th after a controversial year. Harden did have an up and down playoffs, most notably with a 7-point stinker in Game 7 where the Clippers were eliminated, but did have some solid performances, and would make the All-NBA third team, the first time making All-NBA in half a decade. Harden did have a rough shooting season, his efficiency was terrible at 41%, but his offensive creation was still really good. He's amazing as a pick-and-roll operator, and the duo with Zubac was one of the best in the league this year. His on-ball playmaking is still one of the best in the league, and the Clippers were surprisingly good without Kawhi because of Harden. To start the next tier is Jaren Jackson Jr., who jumped from 45 to 26. Triple J does have his clear flaws. He's one of the worst rebounders as a big man in the league and isn't some great playmaker, but does have his strengths. He's coming off a career year where Taylor Jenkins' strategy worked extremely well in putting the ball in his hands, and the handle at his size is pretty hard to stop, though without Jenkins at the helm anymore, his usage could go down. But defensively, Jaren is still one of the best players in the league. His versatility and roaming at that size, combined with his shot blocking, has put him in consistent DPOY combos over the last few seasons. Getting into the top 25 is Trae Young, who fell from 19th last year. Trae has seriously regressed as a scorer, but there is some hope. The back half of the season, he was much more efficient from the rough scoring and efficiency start to the year. The three-pointer hasn't fully progressed to the outlandish expectations from when he came in the league, but the playmaking has exceeded it. Trae seriously has a case to be a top 3 playmaker in the league and will break some crazy assist records. With the ball constantly in his hands, Trae is one of the best manipulators in the league and is a great highlight passer, whether it's lobs or cross course passes. His defense still isn't great, but the Hawks are starting to build something encouraging with Jalen Johnson, Dyson, and Shai that should not go unnoticed. Pascal Siakam jumped over 10 spots from 35th to 28th. Spicy P has been an amazing addition to the Indiana Pacers and even won Conference Finals MVP. He's a multi-level scorer that works greatly next to Hallie, and a power forward with that handle as his second option is perfect. Siakam is also a big positive defensively and has been the best player in many stretches in a finals series with Shai, Hallie, Chet, and J-Dub. He consistently shows up, and though he may not be the flashiest player, he's consistently very good. This is being recorded before the finals ends, but he's genuinely been amazing in the finals. One of his opposing matchups in Chet Holmgren has gone from 42nd to 23rd. Chet does get a lot of hate on social media during his bad performances, but he's quietly an insane defensive player. Chet is 7 foot and one of the most versatile defenders, and the addition next to iHeart works great with the spacing. Chet is a ridiculous shot blocker and moves very well as a defensive roamer. Now offensively, we can see the flashes. His ability to put the ball on the floor at his height is extremely rare, and he's a very good off-ball scorer next to Shai and J-Dub. He may not be some superstar yet, but his upside is one of a top 5 to 10 player. Ja Morant falls barely outside of the top 10 despite being 13th last year. Jenkins' offensive system didn't support him like it did Jaren, as he just didn't get put in pick and rolls despite being great in that play type. The team was built to not optimize their best player, and it held Memphis back, but with Jenkins firing, he should be much better next year. Ja's ability to get downhill is still absolutely amazing, especially when coming off screens, and he may have developed into an even better playmaker. His playmaking and finding cutters and playing within a weird system has grown so much this year, and he already operates very nice off screens with improved defense. While Ja has been taken off the court for various reasons, when on the court, he's one of the biggest offensive threats and has shown some hope in playing at least a solid amount of games every year. Another point guard is 21st, taking a massive jump from 49th, with Darius Garland being one of the best players on a 64-win Cavs team. While a late season toe injury derailed his playoffs, he had an amazing comeback year. Garland is one of the more efficient high-level point guards and a great shooter, shooting over 40% from deep this season and having made nearly 200 threes on almost 40% from deep in every year but his rookie year. He's also great at getting into the paint and generating looks from others, bringing up how good of a playmaker he is. Garland is an elite floor general, being a pick-and-roll manager and having fit very well with Jarrett Allen this year in their pairing. His interior passing is some of the best in NBA history, and he should be given even more ball handling responsibility. J-Dub has moved from 38th to into the top 20. With this being written after Game 5, he arguably just had the best game of his career considering the circumstances, with a 40-pointer to give OKC a 3-2 lead. J-Dub is just an absurd 3-level scorer. He's one of the best pull-up shooters and tough shot makers in the game currently, and has shown more poise in the pick and roll while getting downhill. Defensively, he's also one of the best in the league, making All-NBA third team and All-Defensive second team. His defensive versatility is crazy, even guarding centers earlier in the year, with Ihart and Chet injured, but also a great wing POA defender. Devin Booker stays in the relatively same spot, from 16th to 19th. While to start the season his shooting was rough and the Suns did miss the playoffs, Book is one of the most complete scorers in the league. He's the definition of a 3-level guy. Devin Booker is one of the best mid-range shooters, a complete maestro in that area as an elite pull-up shooter and skilled driver. Even as an off-ball player, he's a great volume shooter, and his playmaking has also gotten much better. With not many good playmakers in Phoenix, Book has stepped up in the huge way after CP3 left. Kawhi Leonard also has stayed in about the same spot, going from 17th to 18th. Kawhi is one of the best players in the league when he actually is healthy, and of course the problem is that he rarely is, and when playing at his actual best, he might be a top 3 guy. This dude is just unstoppable. Now there are still issues with his game, specifically his scoring aggression, but his two-way ability is crazy. Leonard still has the great midi and is an amazing POA defender with his long wingspan and physical abilities. Now let's just hope he stays healthy for next season. The same thing remains true for Joel Embiid at 17, who was 4th last year. Knee injuries have brought up question marks about his long-term health and if he will ever be the same once he returns, as his legs truly might be cooked. When at his peak, Embiid is one of the most unique bigs we have ever seen. Someone at that size with that mobility just isn't normal. A stocky 7-footer that can create for himself on multiple levels, be one of the best pick-and-roll players, an amazing ball handler, and great 3-point shooter with a tight handle and solid midi and post-up game. Even as a playmaker, he's just so good at creating shots for his teammates and even willingly facilitating to them. To start the next tier is Cavs guard Donovan Mitchell, who went from 14th to 16th. Now Spida does have his strengths. He will take command of a team and is an electric multi-level scorer. He'll put up gaudy point numbers and is a really good 3-point shooter and amazing driver to the cup. But the problem is the rest of that. Spida is a pretty horrible playmaker for being that good of a scoring guard, and it isn't because he doesn't have the capabilities to improve, but he just chooses to not pass much. He's the definition of a shot chucker, and the reduced regular season minutes and usage doesn't change that. He's also just horrible defensively, and a terrible defensive backcourt leave a lot of defensive responsibility on the front court of Mobley and Allen. There's a reason why Spida has lost in the second round all 8 years that he's been in the league, and it's that he isn't a winning archetype type of player. He's insanely talented and elite scorer, but it doesn't help other teammates improve and even makes them worse. Unless Spida actively chooses to take a backseat and become a better playmaker, then he will forever limit whatever team he's on. His teammate Evan Mobley took a huge jump from 57th to 15th. Mobley is one of the best defenders in the world, and I would even say top 3. His defensive versatility is out of this world. He's able to defend multiple positions and can do virtually anything a big needs to do defensively. Mobley is an amazing rim protector and great shot blocker that can give the Cavs extra possessions and can even go coast to coast. Offensively, Mobley has taken a huge leap this season with the ball in his hands more. He takes advantage of smaller defenders and is a great handle at that size with an improved three-point shot. He has crazy potential with more offensive responsibility, and this year proved that his scalability isn't an issue. LeBron James has fell from 11th last year to 14th now. While he's still amazing when playing at full strength, he doesn't play at 100 commonly. LeBron's age and growing injuries has led him to usually playing at 70 or 80 most games, and he'll take a lot of possessions off. Now when Bron does play, he's still amazing despite his age. His defense took a huge step up when the Lakers needed it, as he was the best defender on the team in the playoffs. He's still a very good rim protector and solid on-ball defender, and of course, we know on offense, he's one of the best passers in the game, and even has improved heavily as a shooter over the last decade. Someone of the similar archetype but much younger in Cade Cunningham has jumped from 56th to 13th. Cade is one of the best pick-and-roll operators in the game as an insanely good direct playmaker. At 6'8", he can see over everybody and has become a much better decision maker. He's also very good and becoming more complete of a scorer. His three-point shot is passable, while he has an alright mid-range and is a great finisher with his size and strength. He can get inside at will. Cade is also one of the best defenders on the team. His big size allows him to become a great POA defender and solid shot blocker. Anthony Davis remains at 12 for the second consecutive year. He was shipped to Dallas in a shocking midseason trade that will be talked about more with a different player, and his absence in LA was immediately felt as they had no interior defensive presence and it killed them in the playoffs. Now at Dallas, AD didn't play much. He would return from injury and have a monster first half before going down in his Mavs debut, then play a handful of games once they were out of serious contention, but he remains an elite defender. Davis is an amazing shot blocker and rim protector, and next to Lively and maybe Gafford, will finally work more as a 4 again. Now offensively, he doesn't have the consistent ceiling that most fans think, but he's still an amazing interior scoring threat and has a nice mid-range shot, though the three-pointer hasn't come back. Kevin Durant has went back from 8th to 11th this year. Most of the discourse around him is what team he will be on, and he could have been traded by the time this video comes out, but his portability into whatever system has been amazing throughout his entire career, and it won't change now. KD remains as one of the best scorers in the world. His pull-up shot is amazing and people still can't contest it. He's amazing in the mid-range and one of the most efficient and somehow underrated three-point shooters in the league, as in 4 of the last 5 seasons since returning from Achilles injury, he shot over 40% from deep on solid volume. Even defensively, he's still pretty good, and at 36 off an Achilles tear, Durant's game is aging very gracefully. Tyrese Halliburton has jumped 10 spots into the top 10. While he hasn't had an amazing finals, the run that Hallie and the Pacers are on must be appreciated. This is one of the clutchest runs in NBA history, and he is at the forefront. It all starts with his pull-up shot, and if that isn't falling, then the other things start to crumble, like what happened at the beginning of the season. Though the shot is unorthodox, he's still one of the best pull-up shooters in the league, and that leads to his biggest strength, his playmaking. Hallie could very easily be the best soft playmaker in league history. He empowers his teammates to the fullest extent, and he almost never makes a wrong read. He's an auto-great offense if his pull-up is dropping, and should not be crucified for a few bad games after a Cinderella run to even get here. Jalen Brunson moves up a spot to number 9. Most of Brunson's value comes from his elite scoring, especially once Mitchell Robinson returned. He got even better. Brunson's stocky frame, as he's lying about his height, forces defenders off their spots and lets him more easily control the possession. Brunson is one of the best drivers in the league, and stopping him when going to the rim is nearly impossible. His mid-range and floater game make it even tougher, and his pull-up 3 combined with all that make him a nightmare to guard. Now, while his defense is extremely bad, he's also not just a scorer, but a pretty solid playmaker too. That comes from just making the smart read consistently. Brunson also always steps up in the playoffs, carrying his teams, whether it's the Mavs in 2022 or the Knicks, and has turned into one of the league's premier playoff performers. Stephen Curry takes the 8th spot after being ranked 7th last year. It was a rough season for the best shooter of all time, and he did miss nearly the entire second round where the Warriors would be eliminated, taking another year off his limited amount of chances to get number 5, but he's still an amazing player and benefited heavily from the Jimmy addition. Now, you can't talk about Curry without his off-ball gravity. He really is one of the best playmakers in the game because of how much he opens up the floor for other players. Even when getting the ball, he's the greatest shooter ever and is still a great on-ball playmaker. His tough shot making also makes it scary to play against him down the stretch, despite his defense having stagnated after growth from a few years ago. Among the clear top 3 in the superstar tier, Jason Tatum will rank at the bottom, falling 2 spots from last year, but because of the Achilles injury, one of JT's strengths was his durability. He would never miss time, as night in and night out he would show up, but those days may be over after his torn Achilles. Now Tatum is criticized a lot more than he actually should be. While his shot selection is a flaw, it has helped him stay healthy throughout his career. He's also a fearsome pull-up shooter that was having one of the best games of his career against New York before the injury. The Anomaly is one of the most complete players. He's amazing at the role player stuff, being an exceptional defensive rebounder, a very good off-ball shooter, and very versatile defensively. His playmaking cannot be understated, and there really isn't many weaknesses in his game, though it will be important to watch how he returns from the Achilles injury. Anthony Edwards rose 3 spots to 6th, right outside the top 5, and he easily could have took that 5th spot. At just 23, he already took the Timberwolves to 2 conference finals and proved to be one of the better playoff performers among superstars. As a scorer, Ant is absolutely unstoppable. He may have the best first step in the league currently, and paired with his speed and insane athleticism, it makes him one of the best athletes in the world that defenders fear to meet at the rim. Ant has taken an unreal shooting leap, going from nothing special to the league leader in threes made this season, and doing it at a near 40% rate. His pull-up shot is unstoppable, and his playmaking and maturity took a huge leap mid-season. Having commonly been flustered by blitzes and doubles that would take him out the game at times, he now makes the right read a majority of the time and punishes defense trying to run different coverages, specifically the hedging against him in the first couple rounds of the playoffs. Defensively, he's one of the best for a guard with that much offensive responsibility, and is a pest that works amazingly next to McDaniels, NAW, and Gobert. Victor Wembanyama gets into the top 5 after being 18th from his rookie season. Wemby has made it clear that he's the best defender in the world. Opposing players are scared to drive around him. His rim difference is up there with Gobert at this point, and he may be the best ever covering defensively I have ever seen. Because of his game-breaking wingspan, he can easily get back into the play and cause havoc. He's on path to becoming the best shot blocker of all time, and his mobility at that size just isn't normal. His movement is crazy, and he can guard the whole floor at once. Offensively, he's also elite. There is some growing pains, but his three-point shot has taken a leap, and he's so creative with the ball. He's becoming more mature and a great playmaker by the game. Luka Doncic takes the 4th spot, falling from 2nd last year after his worst season since his rookie year. Luka would be at the forefront of arguably the most shocking trade in sports history, being sent to the Lakers, who were eliminated in the first round, and Luka unfortunately may have hit his peak. Not to say that it was a good trade, it was horrible, and Nico Harrison is a terrible GM. But his combined skill of all-around scoring from stretches in 2023 and the direct playmaking with as much on-ball responsibility as he had in winter 23-24 will be incredibly hard to top. And the leg injuries seem to have impacted him a lot. He doesn't have the burst he had before and doesn't offer nearly the amount of rim pressure as he used to, which doesn't even make sense considering how good he is near the rim. He seems to need screens to create space, and he lost the mid-range shot that made him such a complete scorer earlier in his career. And his scoring prowess is now almost entirely based on his three-pointer, which has been inconsistent at best since 2024 spring. Defensively, he did fit well within the Lakers' new system, but still is a negative that is prone to being singled out in isolation. Now, there are reports of him slimming down during the offseason, and as a Luka fan, I really hope those are true, but I've heard these same things for years and would like to see it before I actually believe it. Getting into the top 3 at the same spot as last year is Giannis Antetokounmpo. We got our first sight of a healthy playoff Giannis in 3 seasons, and he was amazing when he played, though unfortunately it wasn't enough. Giannis is the most unstoppable paint scorer in the league. Someone with that size, length, strength, and a good enough handle is something we haven't really ever seen before, as he'll just drive through players and can of course finish through contact extremely well. Giannis's playmaking is also really underrated. From the paint, he's great at kicking out and making the right reads. The Greek Freak is also just a freak of nature that draws some unique and interesting coverages that give more opportunities to his teammates, though his supporting cast is of course pretty rough right now. He also has completely cut out the three-pointer and instead adapted the pull-up midi, which has worked very well for him. Defensively, Giannis has taken a step back, as he isn't some DPOY type of guy anymore, but he's still a huge positive and great shot blocker and roamer. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has jumped from 6th to 2nd after an absurd MVP season. Shai took obvious control of the best scorer in the world title this season. His quickness and first step and understanding of angles makes him one of the best drivers to ever grace the game. He gets to the rim at an insane rate and of course is a premier free throw shooter. His midi is also one of the best in the league, snaking around coverages, and has taken a huge jump as a three-point shooter. Shai's deep range shooting has turned from something normal to being an exceptional shooter. As a scorer, Shai is one of the best offhand users in the league, commonly creating space with a little push-off. Defensively, Shai is also one of the strongest POA guys and playmakers for someone with this much on-ball responsibility. He's taken a big jump this year in dealing with coverages too, and has been given with more playmaking responsibility after trading Giddey. He's been insanely good in the playoffs, and especially in the finals, he's been alright at least, and will likely win finals MVP if OKC can close out the series. And of course, Nikola Jokic takes the #1 spot for the second consecutive season. Jokic is one of the best offensive engines in NBA history. His playmaking is something unstoppable. He's a great ball handler and can fit both ways in the pick and roll. He's amazing offensively in actions, and his floor mapping is generational. He knows where everybody is at all times and can fit balls in anywhere as an exceptionally skilled passer. His playmaking has made him an all-time great, but that doesn't mean he isn't a great scorer. He became one of the best three-point shooters in the league and is great as a pull-up or catch-and-shoot guy, while his post-up game and scoring inside is amazing. While there is a path to Jokic losing the best in the world title soon, at least in the next few years, with the ways being Wemby just going nuclear and continuing on his all-time great path, or Jokic's defense continuing to get worse and his deep shooting falls off while Shai remains being a generational winning two-way player. But as of right now, Jokic has been the best player in the world for a few years and is quickly climbing the all-time charts with a generational peak.